Okay, so let me share my screen. And okay, so these are the things that we are going to go over on this call. It's very casual, so if you have questions as I'm going, feel free to ask. I know that, Alyssa had said, I feel like I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here. So this is really just going to be a good overview of the things that I've learned as I've been doing LMS trainings. So feel free to pipe in if you have questions. I will kind of offer suggestions as I go through on things that I think are helpful and things that I've done kind of to prepare as I get ready to work with an instructor. But feel free to holler if you have any questions as we go. So I just went ahead and pulled up Blackboard. Each LMS is slightly different in how the linking process works. But for the most part, they're also all very similar. A lot of times I very rarely do linking with Canvas. So before I have a meeting with an instructor, I'll go watch the video on the cengage.com/training website. And as you're getting used to this, like that is a great starting place before you connect with a professor to link their course. Just to make sure you're like, okay, so for this type of LMS, I go here, and then I go here, and then I go here. WebAssign right now does not link this way. My suggestion to y'all is that until it does, to just send those customers to Bridget or myself. We're not actively teaching people how to link WebAssign because they're piloting making it link in this fashion for spring 2021 classes anyways. So, and there's just a lot of things that can be a little wonky with that. So everything else links this way. If you're doing SAM linking or CNOW linking or MindTap linking or OWL linking, it all goes through the same flow. The one caveat with CNOW and OWL is that once it is linked through an LMS, they can no longer access it through their single sign-on account. So that's just something to keep in the back of their head. Once you've linked a CNOW or OWL course to an LMS, they have to go through the LMS to access it. So, I will typically ask folks where they want to put or what they want to name the folder. In D2L, you kind of have to create a name. In Blackboard, you can add a folder or you can put it in the content area. You may also want to ask if their school has any specifications around how they link. For example, Greenville Tech now requires that everybody's panel on the left-hand side looks the same. So some schools do, some schools don't, but that's just a good thing to know. So to start your linking process, you're going to go to Partner Content, Content Market. If you see this in any Blackboard course, this is for Blackboard Ultra. We currently do not have any Blackboard Ultra users in our territory. If we get any, I'll let you know. But for right now, you're always going to go to the Cengage Learning logo. And then let's look for pass-through. And then you can search, and I'm going to use this one. Oh, let me go back actually. So a couple of things to know when you're in the content selector, and that's what this is called. So this area is your content selector, is that it's going to tell you your site license type on the right-hand side. So if you have any inclusive access courses, you want to make sure that they link the site license instead of the one that says student access code required. Likewise, if you're linking a course that's supposed to have an access code, you want to make sure that it says student access code. And then enterprise license means the same thing as site license. You can also see if it's expired as you're linking it, and you would know that you need to email, digital fulfillment services in order to have that extended. But that's what those mean. So it's a good thing to take a look at if you're helping somebody link their course, or to let them know that if they're linking an inclusive access course, to make sure that it has a site license. And then they can just search by the author, title, and just make sure that they're linking the right edition of the book. And then they'll have all 4 of these options. So if Christy or Kirsten created their course for them, they can actually just click link to an existing course. It will have all the settings, it will have all the due dates, what to do. They can also copy from another instructor's course, which is common if you have a course coordinator, or they can copy from their existing course if they've already created a course. So if they're going from semester to semester, they can utilize this option. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new one. And I usually try to name it something that students will know, because this is what students are going to see when they register for the course. And then they want to make sure that the course start date is the start date of the class, so that their students have access to the full grace period. And then they'll have to select their time zone. They don't need to fill in their course days or times or their section, just like they don't have to when they're in single sign-on. And click continue, and you wait. There's lots of clicking and waiting when you're setting this up. These 2 options are going to come up every time you link a course. If they just want one overall MindTap score in the gradebook, like they want a column that says MindTap scores, then they would click the top option. If they want a score for every single activity, they would want to click the second option. This can be changed. There are some caveats to changing it later, but if they put the main link in and then they're like, whoa, I really do only want one MindTap score, they can go back and they can change that. If they don't want any columns in their gradebook, or they don't know if they want any columns in their gradebook, choose the second one. And then they click continue and continue. And if they change their mind about their destination folder, they could change that here and then click submit. And then now they have their course link, and they will be able to click on it and open it as long as their pop-up blockers. Okay, so this means that my site license is expired, I think, or that's what I would guess. So we're going to ignore that. My apologies. You should always check to make sure that you've released what you've released into Blackboard is in there correctly. That doesn't usually happen for instructors, because typically we release it forever. I have had that come up when I am in our demo platform. So just make sure that if you're doing this for a presentation, you're trying all your links to make sure that they work, so that you don't get into your presentation and something doesn't work the way that you want it to.
Hey, Ashley, I was just going to say, and if you have, get a message from instructors and they say, hey, I was trying to relink my course, and they get that message, to Ashley's point, that should be the first thing we check. So now that you've seen that, you know that if you hear that, let's check that to make sure that the license hasn't expired.
Yes. Yeah, because that is a very common issue, particularly with inclusive access. Not so much like when we release a product for access protected, there's no end date, but everything for a site license has an end date, and it depends on how it was set up as to whether it's a term, a year. When I set mine up for my schools, I always did a year, but other people don't. So yes, if you get that, if you have instructors tell you they got that message, that's a good place to start. The other things so once you have this link in here, regardless of whether they want gradebook columns or not, I always have people go back in to add a link for technical support. So the Cengage Unlimited Student Dashboard is not necessarily needed anymore because when students click in, their dashboard comes up on the left panel anyway. But I find that putting the Cengage Technical Support link in saves a lot of trouble down the road, as it will populate a lot of the students' information for them. So I always put that back in. And then I go in and I edit it and put for immediate assistance, please call the Cengage support line at 1-800-355. So I'll put some variation of this message in underneath the technical support link, because I think sometimes some students feel more comfortable submitting an online ticket. Some students feel more comfortable calling the 1-800 number, but I always put the for immediate assistance, because a lot of times they'll submit a ticket online and they can't complete their homework, and their homework's due in an hour, and that email ticket is not going to get answered in an hour. So I always put that message in because I really want to reinforce that they need to call technical support first. I also will go to our training website. This one's mine tab. And I want and I'll literally do this with an instructor on a call, or when I'm in their office, so that I know that these things are done. Because a lot of times they'll only have you set it up the first time. And I'll put the registration video into their LMS. So I'm going to put a web link, and you can see that I've used this a lot. And I'll make that the first item. So like regardless of how much information they want put in, of what they want to do, I think every course needs to have these 3 items. They need to have the registration video, or if the instructor prefers the PDF to tell students how to register. It needs to have the link for students to click on, and it needs to have the link for technical support. Now, if an instructor made an oops and they linked the wrong book or the wrong course, they actually don't have to go through technical support to fix that. They can just delete this link and then go into their Cengage dashboard and delete that course, and it will delete that from the system, so that they can link the correct product. So they don't have to call technical support. They don't have to come to me. It's just a matter of deleting this link and then going into their Cengage account and deleting that course, so that they can then link the right thing. But it won't, until that course is deleted, it won't let them associate a different course with this section. So any questions on the initial setup, on what to do if they make a mistake, on what that error message was that we got when we connected this one? Okay.
I have one quick question. Where do you find the Cengage technical support again? Was that in the same area that you would link? It looked like it was the same area you linked the course.
Yes. So if you go into partner content market again, now you can see their linked course. And if you go into that area, then you will see all the items that they can add to their gradebook, as well as the link for Cengage technical support.
Okay, so that'll be found in every single MindTap course.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yes, and you can also go in, so I know I told you can kind of go back and forth as to whether, like, so if they change their mind and they're like, oh, I would prefer to have the the overall course score, they can go in and change this to course score and click synchronize overall course score. But then they also will have to put in this primary link again. So they'll have to confirm this, and that is what will cause that gradebook column to populate into their Blackboard course. In the same token, if they've set it up as a course score and they want to go to individual activity scores, they can go into that content or partner content market into their MindLinks course and switch it to activity scores. But then they will need to go into their Blackboard gradebook and delete that overall course score. And the most common thing that I see when instructors' grades are not syncing and they're really not syncing is that this has accidentally been changed to course score. So if you have somebody that reaches out to you that says, my gradebook isn't working, it's not flowing, then that's the initial question that I would, or the initial thing that I would have them check, is to make sure that this is set to activity scores if they're pushing over multiple scores, or that it has a course score and they have that column in their gradebook. Because for some reason it's very common that that kind of gets flipped one way or the other. I think often when people go in to finish setting up their course, they just maybe click something by accident. But that can be changed back and forth until they start having scores flow in. Once they start having students in the class interacting with that section, I wouldn't encourage changing this back and forth because it could mess up their grade flow. So in the same token, if they want to have, so we set it up so that they have each activity score pull over, so they can create, and this works for any LMS, they can create different units or folders. So let's say we want to do, let's do chapter 1 assignment. So they could then go into their individual folder and pull in links for these assignments by going the same way. Content market, Cengage MindLinks course, and then finding anything that says add to gradebook, they can put a column into their gradebook for. They can also pull over individual links for the chapter. If they want to direct students directly to a particular activity. So if they want to have a link in there that the student would click on to go directly to the chapter 3 reading, they could put that link in there. Even if that's not something that can go to the gradebook. Within their course, the assignment must be set to counts towards grade in order for this add to gradebook column to show up. So for example, if this quiz chapter 3 before class is a practice assignment, it is not going to give me the add to gradebook option because MindTap doesn't know that that is something that we need to score and push over. So, but anything else, any other links can be put in. They do have to have the add to gradebook and the link in Blackboard in order for a grade to flow into the gradebook if they're doing activity scores. If they're doing the main course score, they only need to have that one main link in the one column. But for any individual activity scores, they would have to have the course link and the add to gradebook link in order for that score to flow successfully into the gradebook. And then once they've chosen what they want to choose, they can click confirm. It will give them a list of what they've chosen. They can click save, and it's going to redirect them back into the LMS. All of their points should be changed in MindTap before it's brought over into the LMS in order to make sure that grades flow correctly. So they need to, my suggestion is always set up your MindTap course first, and then we'll finish linking your course to your LMS. But they can, delete the link, delete the gradebook column, go back in, change those settings, and then make those links if they want to do that. And I just click submit. And then they'll have any links that they pulled over here, and they would have in their full, they'll have the columns that they pulled over. Once those columns are in there, they can do whatever weighting they want to do. So if they want all the MindTap assignments together to be worth 10% of the grade, they could categorize those and weight those within the grade book. And if they need help weighting, that's typically something their LMS admin can do. If you're feeling really froggy, you can come into the LMS and tinker around with it or touch base with me and we can figure it out. But typically they know how to do that part, or their LMS admin knows how to help them weight their scores if they want to do the weighting process. So any questions on grade links or how that process works?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
So if they set weights, or excuse me, points in MindTap for a grade, how does that translate in if they change the weights in their Blackboard gradebook?
Yeah, so they cannot change the point values. So for example, if I have a MindTap assignment, it's worth 30 points. I pull that link into Blackboard and the assignment is worth 30 points and then I save it. I can't then go in Blackboard and change the point value to 20 points. I would have to do that in MindTap because MindTap's not going to know that they changed that in Blackboard. However, they can change the weighting. So Blackboard, Moodle, D2L, they'll all let you go into, I don't even know if I know how to do it in Blackboard, but they'll let you go into an assignment and weight it as a, so that you can have homework assignments weigh one thing, tests weigh one thing. So it's just calculating your average weighted total in a different fashion. And because they're not messing with the point values in that scenario, it will work with whatever they put into Blackboard.
And this might be a stupid question, but does MindTap, so say an assignment's worth 10 points, and MindTap sends that data over to Blackboard, is it going to send it over in point form or in percentage form, or is that something that the Blackboard gradebook has to be set up? Because I feel like I've set up someone's gradebook before in Blackboard or in D2L, and they had to choose if they wanted their gradebook set up in percentage or point. So I just didn't know how our systems communicate if they're working on different, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yes, I know what you're asking.
Okay.
So yeah, so MindTap pulls over scores in points, but if they have their D2L settings on to show things in percentages, D2L will make that calculation for them because it knows that it's 10 points out of 10 points, so it's 100%. So it doesn't matter what they choose in their LMS. MindTap's going to send it over in points, and then they would have to change their LMS gradebook if they wanted it in percentages versus points. Is that what you're asking?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Perfect. Let's see if I'm.
And then I had a quick question about when instructors, I think it's more for like language instructors, but sometimes they use the MindTap gradebook to categorize things by like listening's 10%, written activities are 30, and then speaking activities are 20.
Mm-hmm.
If they weight or put things in categories in the MindTap gradebook, does any of that flow over on the LMS side?
If they do it as an overall course score, then yes. So for languages in particular, and that's one of the do's and don'ts. So for languages in particular, I strongly recommend that they have a single gradebook column because they're going to have hundreds of scores. And in that case, they can weight everything in their MindTap gradebook and then have it come over as just one overall MindTap score. Because the more links you put in, the more room for error there is. Most courses have, 3 to 5 assignments at most per chapter, but with world languages having 25 to 50 assignments per chapter, it's just a lot if something gets thrown off and you have to troubleshoot. Because if they have to troubleshoot the gradebook, then they have to do that work for 50 scores, and it can be time consuming. But if they have everything weighted in the MindTap gradebook and they have that one overall course score then pulled over, then those weights will transfer. If not, then they won't, because there's no there's pulling over each point value for each assignment, so that weighting would need to be done within the LMS gradebook. So that is one of the, so I was trying to think of all my do's and don'ts. So yeah, so if they want things weighted in the MindTap gradebook, then they should have an overall course score. If they're a world languages instructor, until we can do chapter level grade pull, which I think we're working on still, I would recommend that they utilize that overall course score in case there's something that we have to troubleshoot. And then if they ever need to delete Cengage links out of their LMS, they should delete those links one at a time. So for example, I decide that I don't want to have any of these assignments. I'm not gonna have the students do chapter 1 or chapter 3. I would not want to just delete this folder, even though that would remove the links, because then it will not let me delete those gradebook columns. So I would want to go in and individually delete each of these links, and then delete the folder, and then go into the gradebook and delete the columns out. So if I try to go in here now, there's no delete option. If I would have to go in and delete the chapter 3 assignment, and then go into the full results center and delete, and then it will let me delete the column. If they delete the whole folder and then they want to delete gradebook columns, they actually have to pull that assignment link back in order to be able to delete it individually and delete the gradebook column out. If that does not work, then they have to have their LMS admin reach out to the LMS group, like their Blackboard admin has to reach out to Blackboard and have Blackboard delete that, unless the LMS admin can delete it. So there was a case at Greenville Tech where they linked an assignment that then no longer existed. And so we couldn't put that link back in to delete it and delete it out of the gradebook. So we actually had to go to the Blackboard team and have them delete it because we couldn't get it out of their gradebook. So the best practice is delete one link at a time in order to make sure that then they can go back and delete those out of their gradebook. That makes sense? Okay. And as far as I know, that holds for all LMSs except for D2L. D2L will let you delete out of the gradebook without deleting the assignment columns. And then Moodle does require that you input each link one at a time, as opposed to being able to go in and do a bunch. So if I go in here, I can actually select every single gradebook column that I want at one time and click confirm, and it will pull them all in at one time. Moodle, even with this type of integration, will not let you do that. You have to do like chapter 1, pull the link over, chapter 2, pull the link over, chapter 3, pull the link over. So it's a little more time consuming. Any questions on any of that? Troubleshooting. So I'm going to go into D2L and I have like a spreadsheet of, if you don't have your logins, you can let me know. We can request those again. I spent a lot of time when I was learning how to do this, just playing around in LMSs, building courses and seeing how things worked, because I know I can't break it in this environment. I have students for both Blackboard and D2L, so if you ever need a student for either of those, I can share my students with you and show you how to enroll them. For the most part, it's worked pretty well to not have students. I just had situations where I needed a student. So troubleshooting. So if the most common thing that instructors will say is my grades aren't flowing. After everything is set up, that's typically what we get the most of. And so there's a couple of things to do. The first is that if they have individual activity scores, you would want to click on whatever activity is not flowing and make sure that that link opens into the assignment that they are trying to pull grades from. So it should go directly to that assignment so that we know that that link is functioning correctly. And it'll take it a minute to open it. So it went to this assignment, so I know that part of it's working. If that's not working, then even in D2L, I would go ahead and delete this link, delete the gradebook column, and pull it back in so that you can hopefully get that flow working right. If it opens to the correct assignment, then you can go into Open Gradebook and then go to Gradebook and then go to Gradebook Actions and force LMS sync. And there is typically a drop down, and I must have this one set to course score, where you can choose just that single assignment so that the grade sync will happen immediately, so that they don't have to wait the hour or 24 hours that it might take for the whole gradebook to flow. So let me change that. So I want to show how that. So this one is, and this is what I was talking about with making sure that this is not set to course score, that it's set to activity scores. If they have it set wrong, then those are not going to flow. And that's why it's not letting me sync the individual scores. And, sorry, I've got my all my Zoom toolbars are over my. Okay. So now if I go back into MindTap, and open gradebook and gradebook, And gradebook actions. Okay, so if it is just one assignment that the grades aren't flowing, you can just go in and pick whatever assignment is not flowing and click sync, and then have them log out and log back in. And if that's going to work, it should. If they have to do their whole grade book, then I would have them come back in 30 minutes to an hour. It really does take more than a few minutes usually to have those grades flow back over. If that does not work to where the grades flow, then the only other way to fix it is to remove the column from the grade book and put it back in. So that would go back, like in Blackboard, that would go back to what I was talking about with you got to delete chapter 1. Okay. Then go to the full grade center and delete chapter 1 and okay. And then you literally go back to wherever you have your content selector. It varies on LMS. And then go in and pull that link in again. I think we were doing chapter 1. So add the link in, add the gradebook column in, and confirm. And then go back into MindTap and do that, force that assignment score again, and that typically works for pulling the grades in. If those steps do not work, then it's when you would want to send it on to send in a tech support ticket and either have the instructor or with the instructor call the LMS integrations team to have them continue troubleshooting. But those are steps that, I mean, I would say 99 times out of 100, those things work, and then they don't have to spend the time on the phone waiting for somebody to help them when all they need to do is delete that item. Typically it's only 1 or 2 items. For some reason, they just won't have that connection and they'll have to put those back in. And a lot of times doing that, the grade sync will work, and then they won't have to do anything. Any questions on those troubleshooting steps for grade flow? Okay, and I do want to show you, and we can tinker with this as you end up in these situations, but this was really helpful for me. And I know we have a lot of D2L in our territory. So in D2L, and this is the only one, you do not actually have to remove the assignment link. You can go to manage grades and bulk edit. And then and if I had 20 scores in here, I could delete those all at one time. And then go back, and yes, I'm sure, and then go back and create a hidden folder and pull over the 10 or 20 gradebook links again if I need to do a bunch of them, or the one, but you don't have to delete this option out. You don't have to delete the assignment link out. So it saves a little bit of time for instructors to not have to remove that and then go back and and then go back and put their grades in. So it's a little bit faster. The other 3 LMSs that we have in our territory, you do have to delete the assignment before it will let you delete the score out of the grade book. Any questions on that? Okay. Yeah, so when to pass it off. So I think we've gone through most of that. So as far as grade flow, if you've done those steps, you can submit the ticket and then call LMS integrations line. I'll make sure to share that via text with everybody so that everybody has that number. The LMS integrations number is different than the general tech support number. So you get to somebody who's, I'll actually just put on the screen so that if somebody's watching this in a recording, they have it. But you're getting to somebody that has experience troubleshooting in an LMS, as opposed to going through general tech support. So if you've gone through troubleshooting, then this is the number that you would want to call in order to get to a support representative that has training and that has LMS training, so that they can help you solve the issue. And they've been pretty good. I've had to call them with, just several quirky things that I haven't been able to figure out. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to write that down. Okay, was there anything else that I could show y'all how to do, or anything that you've been asked specifically by instructors that I could show?
So if someone is to relink their course, so we're moving into fall, they have it linked for the spring, they copy their D2L course shell in D2L, and they go to relink their course. The only steps they have to take is just clicking on any link that's already in there, and then going through the like create a course, link a course, that whole thing. Is that the only step they have to take, or is there another one?
Yep, nope, that's it. And I don't know, I was looking to see if I can remember how to, but yeah, when they copy their course, then the links will all show up, and when they click on it, they're going to get the prompt to create a course. Now, the one caveat that you want when they're copying from semester to semester, they need to copy the MindTap course or the whatever course that was linked previously. So they don't want to start a brand new course, or their grades will not flow correctly. So let me see if I can figure out how to, I don't even know if I know how to copy. Okay. Yeah, I don't have one copied in here. But yes, so I don't know if that makes sense, but when they go into that that screen where it says create a new course, copy from a course, copy from another instructor's course, or link to a course, they need to copy from my existing course, or if they're copying their Blackboard shell, copy from another instructor's course, and use the course that the LMS course was copied from in order to make sure that their grades flow correctly. Because, I mean, for example, we just had an instructor, somebody copied a course to him from another instructor that had all these links in for Cengage, and then he just clicked in there and said create a new course. Well, we had to delete all of the links and grade columns because it wasn't going to a course that had been created through that LMS. So it didn't know where any of those links were supposed to go. So that's the only caveat in copying, but copying works. Typically, if they're not making major customizations from semester to semester, they can copy until they have to go to a new edition or a new version of MindTap, and then start fresh.
And in order to catch that, like the instructor scenario you just gave us, by clicking on those links and making sure they connect to the correct MindTap course, and then clicking on switch my course, I think it's up in the right hand corner, and just double checking they're in the right course. Is that the best kind of proactive measure you can take in order to make sure those links, I don't know if they were broken?
Yeah, they were broken.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So that's just making sure that they're aware that if they're copying a Blackboard course, they need to copy that same MindTap course. And typically, like, I've not had typically the scenarios I end up in with that is where an instructor copies to another instructor. Like, most often, if they're copying their own courses, they're selecting, copy from an existing course anyways. But I do run into where an instructor has copied to another instructor, and then that instructor has no idea what they're supposed to do with that. So then they just create a course and then everything's kind of a little wonky. We can backtrack that if we need to. They can delete that course off of their Cengage dashboard, and then that would allow for the course to be copied again. Let me see if I can show you that actually. Okay, so I don't want training. See if I can show you what I mean. Okay. So as long as they have not had students enroll yet, so let me go manage courses. I think it's this one. So if I delete this course that I have created through D2L, oh, I have students in it. And it'll tell me that I have students in it. Let me see if I have students in this one. You have to go in, and that's what I was saying, you have to go in and make sure, like, once there's students in there, the students have to be dropped before you can delete a course as like a fail safe to keep you from obliterating something that somebody has worked on. But they can backtrack if they have made a mistake. So I'm gonna drop this student. And whenever I'm dropping students or whenever I'm dropping students or doing anything with grades or helping with anything like that, I require that the instructor is on a Zoom with me at the very least, because that's not something that is easily undone, you know, and that's not really something that I feel like it's my place to mess with. So if they need help, you know, changing grades in a grade book or relinking scores or dropping students, like I always say, hey, we'll get on a Zoom, we'll do it together, but I want to make sure that I don't affect anything that your students have done. Okay, so because I deleted that in Cengage, it deleted that course. You're always going to get this error message. The error message looks scary. It's not scary. This is what's supposed to happen. And then if they click continue, they're going to get that this. So if for any reason they link the wrong course, they can go into manage courses in their Cengage dashboard and just delete it, and then go in and they are able to copy from their existing course and find the right one. If for some reason they need to keep that course, like, you know, they created from scratch sections 1 and sections 3, and they accidentally linked section 3 to section 1, then you can reach out to me. I do have a way to sever that. But if they click copy from my existing course and they accidentally copied from this one instead of that one, then they can just go into their Cengage dashboard and delete it. And it will prompt them with this screen so that they can copy from the right course or copy from another instructor's course. Does that make a little more sense after you've seen it?
Yes. Sorry, I gave it a reaction, but I don't think you saw it.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I have just have my record screen up. Any other questions or things that you have come up against?
I have a question. Brooke and I were on a call with Trini at TCTC yesterday, and I don't think we can do this. I've never seen it anywhere, but we explained that she could only have one course level link because she's a Spanish instructor, but she really wants like pictures and images. She wants her Blackboard to be pretty, and she wants those images to come from MindTap or to be integrated. There's no way to pull anything else that's not just links over. Is that correct?
Right. So the only thing, like, she can pull over a link like this to anything, but if she wanted an image, the only way would be to like clip an image and then put it in as an image. So like if I went into my MindTap course and took a picture of something, then I could put in an image, but there's not a way to have that like linked in as like a picture into Blackboard. It's always going to show up as some form of this link.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. So as far as what I would suggest for next steps for getting better at this and kind of learning how to feel comfortable with it, I would pick your top 2 LMSs that you have in use for your schools and go in and build a course and click on the links and make sure they work and figure out how to put content in. Like I said, I really relied heavily on the training website when I started this. And when I go into a new situation, I like whenever somebody's like, can you help me link my class to Canvas? Then I go in and I literally watch the Canvas video to see it again. Because I don't do Canvas very often, so I don't have that just like in my arsenal of things that I can remember how to do. But you can practice with MindTap or CNow or Alby2 or SAM and just see how things work, just so that you can start feeling comfortable with the process. And you're always welcome to reach out to me if you want me to play the professor so that you can practice this with a living, breathing human being. I am more than happy to do that. And I did a lot of that when I started digging into this, because there's a lot of little quirks, especially when you're transitioning from, Blackboard to D12 to Moodle to Canvas. It's easy to get lost if you don't do it on your own. At least that's what I think. So, and like I said, if you don't know how to access any of your Cengage LMS courses, let me know and we can connect you to the right people so that you have your usernames and passwords. And if you ever need a student, you can let me know. Okay. Well, I'm going to stop the recording, maybe.